just ask you something? Is the presentation seen if I share the screen?
Now I am sharing the screen. So you continue with this presentation. I'll project the slides.
Because I've got two devices logged in.
Yeah, and let me continue the presentation. I'll move forward.
Okay.
Start.
Just 1 second. I need to see my PowerPoint. Okay. So cannabis, tricky subject. As we said, we'll go through some of the history of CBD. Many people think that this was one of the oldest cultivated plants known to man. As human beings, modern human beings emerged 250,000 years ago, 2.5 lakhs years ago. But agriculture is only as new as 10,000 years ago. And almost 8,000 BC, marijuana was one of the first agricultural crops. That this may have itself led to civilization. So the Emperor Shen Nung, who's one of the pioneers in making up the treatise on Chinese medicines, he's credited with having discovered some really important medicinal herbs such as ginseng, ephedra, and cannabis. So these were used in the treatment and used as in the mainstay of Hello? Hello?
Your audio, it comes and goes. You're not able to.
Okay. Somebody just clicked off and just got off. Got switched off.
Continue. Please continue. And next slide, you let me know. I'll be moving the slides.
Okay. Sure. So this was used for all kinds of things, including rheumatism and gout and malaria, absent-mindedness of all things and menstrual problems and things like that. And we all know that bhang is part of a cultural thing, including Holi and Shaivism and all kinds of things. And it was used even in Europe, even in Egypt, for glaucoma, hemorrhoids, and cooling the uterus. So those are some pictures. Can we go to the next slide? So that's some pictures from Holi festival where we used the bhang. The next slide. So in Europe, between 500 and 300, in that time, so at that time, the Greek historian Herodotus mentions its use in ritual and recreational use, but in Arabic world, there was a physician, an Islamic physician, who suggested that it might be used in the treatment of migraine, but Ibn Wahasiya started warning people that it could be addictive and could be potentially a lethal poison. So, but Materia Medica, a composition of various medicines by the Roman physician Pedanus, included it as one of the useful medicines. And cannabis as an anesthetic was used to perform surgeries in 140 and 280 in China. Victorian England in 1800. So this was a time when cannabis enjoyed a lot of repute. Between 1800 to the early 1930s, before the the prohibition came in, it was used to treat a wide variety of things, including convulsions. You have a doctor. If you go to the next slide, you have a doctor, Dr. William W.B. O'Shaughnessy. So he's the one who conducted the first clinical trial. He claims to have treated a baby who was 40 days old with epilepsy, neonatal convulsions, and he said he was doing very well after that. So they were using it for rabies and tetanus and rheumatism and cholera. So if you go to the next slide, please. There was almost 100 articles during that time, and it was added into the US Pharmacopoeia in 1850. So that was, as you can see, it's from things that we are very familiar with, Lippincott, that we've all studied in our UG time. So there was, but then it fell out of repute in 1970s and between that time and between the 30s to the 70s, because people were more aware of its addictive properties and of its psychoactive elements. But the last 2 decades, there has been increasing interest in it, mainly because there has been, between the 70s and 80s, there has been some anecdotal experience that there was seizure reduction in those who were smoking cannabis. So this is the cannabis sativa. It's too complex a plant with far too many chemicals within it for us to identify each. We can just, there have been specifically identified more than 100 cannabinoids, phytocannabinoids. So active ingredients can be classified into two. Two of the most abundant, best studied chemicals are the Tetrahydrocannabinol, or the THC, and the Cannabidiol. The THC is the one that has the psychoactive property. So if you go to the next slide, yeah, so that's just basically telling us one versus the other. The hemp versus marijuana. So hemp was initially cultivated more for its other uses, such as paper, for clothing, for rope, and marijuana was used for recreational purposes. So that has higher THC component. So if we go to the next one. So that's what we had said. So the body itself has its own endogenous cannabinoid system. Go to the next one. So this tells us, two ways, CBD versus THC. THC is the one that is a Schedule 1 drug that was tightly, strictly monitored, whereas CBD is now been downregulated into a Schedule 5. So CBD is non-psychoactive, is neuroprotective, anticonvulsant. So, but then this too is known to have anticonvulsant effects. Even THC is known to have some anticonvulsant properties. So if we go to the next slide. So that's the structure of THC, which is a delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, which is converted from THCA by drying and heating. The next slide, please. So it is known to have various actions. It is known to be an anxiolytic, analgesic, as many of our forefathers have found out. It is also known to act on the CB1 receptor and be an anticonvulsant, and also be an appetite stimulant, reduce emesis, anti-inflammatory, and immune suppression. So we go to the next slide, please. So the THC receptors, as we said, can be classified primarily into the CB1 and the CB2 receptor. So can we go to the next slide? So this is just to get an idea of the endocannabinoid system, which is within our own body. So they produce their own messengers. So these bind to the CB1 and CB2 receptors. And there are two that are really important. One is the anandamide, which was initially discovered. And then there's a 2-AG, which is probably so there are multiple of these chemicals. Some of them are agonistic, some are antagonistic. We're not entirely sure how useful they are. This is with both in vivo as well as in vitro studies, because the composition, the concentrations are different. So we still, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. We still don't know which one works. There's still things that we know is very little. So THC receptors, these G-linked receptors, are part of the endogenous endocannabinoid system. And it's useful to discuss the endocannabinoid system just for us to understand it. So the 2-AG, they work as a retrograde inhibitor. If you think about the neurons, you have the presynaptic one and the postsynaptic one. This is a retrograde inhibitor. They are released postsynaptically, and then they go back. So we think it's not just a receptor, that it's all biofeedback, multiple different mechanisms of loop feedbacks. So they diffuse backwards to the presynaptic cell, where they inhibit neurotransmitters or cytokine receptors. And it's all mediated through multiple channels, including calcium channels and opening of the potassium channels. So the endocannabinoid system, we believe, is very important in homeostasis. There's a lot of implications in inflammation. And these are the two things that we said were important, the two arachidonyl glycerol and anandamide. So the phytocannabinoids are what we get the plant extracts. This is what has been researched. And we're hoping that it can impair or in a positive way, impact this pathways. So this is an example. So these are the three main pathways that we know of. The neurotransmitter release, GABA, and here CB1, CB2 activators, number 3, and you have another one here, release of anandamide. But as you can see, there are other molecules that do this. So phytocannabinoids, that's the plant-based extract. So these are described in other plants such as carrots, echinacea, ginseng, cloves, and black pepper. So the most understood, the most studied in the market, in the scientific world, are the phytocannabinoids of the THC and the CBD category. If you go, that is a CBD structure. So this is not a CB1 agonist, and it is converted from CBDA heating, whereas the other one was THCA heating. So this is a useful review article that's available freely published by the Mayo Clinic. This is just a guide for us. This is actually both something to encourage us to use it, but also to try and warn us. So this is a 2019 one, which is saying that anything under less than 3% tetrahydrocannabinol, that is what you would call as CBD, or as pure as it gets. So if you go to the next slide. So this is an important article looking at the large numbers. This article mainly studied adverse events. So this followed when it was legalized. In 2018, GW Pharma produced the molecule as Epidiolex, and this was marketed. So then they had the opportunity to study this molecule for side effects, large-scale study for side effects in a proper way. So this was basically concentrating on adverse events. So this is useful in looking at that. So this is the Epidiolex, the only approved molecule by GW Pharma. It contains 100 milligrams per ml, but it's extremely expensive. Epidiolex is the brand known in the US, and the EU it is Epidiolex with a Y instead of an I. Could we go to the next slide, sir? So this is again, as you can see, most of the people named in this is a guide to treatment meant for us physicians. Professor Arzi Maniglau, my own Professor Helen Cross, and the Cannabinoids International Experts Panel, the collaborators, they're the ones who produced this document. So this is a very recent document. So I must confess that I myself started using it only after I met my professor in a conference, Professor Helen Cross, in 2017, when they had more than 300 patients who were on CBD. At that time, there was no pharma grade molecule that was available. So what they're trying to say is there's a lot of discrepancies between the grade of the compound that you're getting and the purity. So as you can see, this is from 2017, what we've been using in India is this Endoca. This itself is, even within our patients who are using it, it's a bit iffy. They have to mix it either in coconut oil or olive oil. So when they use it, sometimes if the color changes, the patients have more seizures, or they have less seizures, they have other side effects. It's not pharma grade, so we don't know what else is there in it. This is supposed to be pure. It has less than 3%, but we're not entirely sure. So the mechanism of action, as we said, CB1 receptors. It is structurally very different from all the other AEDs, and it is specifically meant for Lennox-Gastaut, Dravet syndrome, tuberous sclerosis, and basically any difficult epilepsy, but it is FDA approved for these 3 conditions. So this is the 3 conditions. There are multiple trials that have been used for getting this FDA approval. So any refractory epilepsy, including super refractory status epilepticus. About 2-3 years ago, there was a case series of 16 patients where almost 15 there was some benefit for super refractory status epilepticus, even people on ketamine and propofol and isoflurane who had been tried on CBD. I must confess, I've also tried CBD on my super refractory status epilepticus, but I've only tried it in a couple of patients and it hasn't been that beneficial. But I've tried it for a short while. So this is just to tell you that in the pediatric world, this is unfortunately every day for us. Every day we see multiple patients with Lennox-Gastaut with multiple burst suppression. This is actually looking less dramatic, but this is actually seen at 30 or 50 hertz or something like that. This is at 50 hertz. So they're really dramatic looking, terrible polymorphic spikes and waves and badly reactive EEGs. The epileptic encephalopathy is the norm for a pediatric neurologist. So we see difficult epilepsies. So some of the examples are the sodium channelopathies. They're very important, but we'll speak specifically on the fact that they are necessary for action potential and generating the triphasic wave. The next one. The next one. So of this, there is SCN1 to 11As, but we are going to speak primarily on the SCN, the Dravet, SCN1A. So the SCN1A, the next slide, is what we are most interested in because this causes difficult, devastating epilepsy, and it is particularly good to use CBD if one can afford it. But it responds to almost all the others. But most of the SCN2As and 3As and people like that, if they don't have the brain malformations, they do very well. We have many children who are not drug refractory. So coming to the Dravet, onset is usually first year of life with febrile seizures, prolonged unilateral or generalized clonic seizures, and they evolve into other seizure types by 1 to 4 years of age. There's often pleomorphic different types of seizures, myoclonus, atypical absences, and there may be a presumed normal development, but there is cognitive slowing after more than a year of age. There's developmental and epileptic encephalopathy. So there's a terrible burden that the developing child's brain plays. But this is a spectrum. So that is why it's called the SCN1A related epilepsies. You have the milder end of the spectrum, where you may have family members who just have F plus and FS1, or you have the severe end of spectrum. So just coming back to any refractory epilepsy, these are from the NICE guidelines of 2012 and from JAMA 2017. What we always think is that if you're drug refractory after 2 years, more than 2 ADs which are tried adequate dose, then we have a duty to our patient to think about alternative treatments. And alternative treatments either are non-drug treatments like vagal nerve stimulation, ketogenic diet, or surgical evaluation. And we routinely do these things. But often, as we all know, it's very difficult because you're not making everything very well. So drug refractory epilepsies, the newer therapy, CBD. So coming to CBD, oftentimes when we've used the CBD, I've possibly used in maybe a little over 40 patients. In most of these patients, one of the nice things is that they actually don't get sedated. Just like the ketogenic diet and like the VNS, they become more alert with the CBD. They don't become drowsy with it. So this is a multimodal. We do not understand the mechanism of action of CBD, but we think it acts in 3 main ways. One is through the GPR55 receptors, the other one is through the 3RPV1, and another one is through this, the ENT1, the adenosine pumps. As I said, they're through biofeedback loops. So mechanism of action unknown, but it has affinity to multiple targets, and there is reduced neuronal excitability ultimately. So some of the targets, these are some of the targets. The transient receptor potential vanilloid and the orphan G protein coupled receptor and the equilibrium nucleoside. So coming to animal models, there have been a lot of studies. There have been studies with different types of animal models, including those with absence epilepsies, those with various types of epilepsies. But what we do know that is that it does work, and there is some amount of modulation of adenosine mediated signaling, and it's a lot to do with intracellular calcium signaling, mostly to the GP55 and the TRPV1. So coming to what is available in the market, this is a purified CBD oil available in the strength of 100 milligrams per ml in a glass bottle, and the contents are dehydrated alcohol, sesame seed oil, strawberry flavor, and sucralose. And this is some of the dosing regimes. So we usually start. So I must confess, before Epidiolex was in the market in 2018, when we started using it, we started using the Endoca. So what we did was we started with 1 milligram per kg per day, and we gave them 4 divided doses. We divided it in 4 times a day. And also we made sure that usually most of these children were on benzodiazepines, such as clobazam frequently. So we had to reduce the clobazam because clobazam potentiated the efficacy and made this more potent. It didn't allow for the metabolism of the CBD. But with the Epidiolex, usually it is given in 2 divided doses, starting with 5 milligrams per kg, then going up to 10 milligrams, then if necessary, adjusted up to 50 to 20 as tolerated. So the tolerability, they do get liver enzyme problems. Some of them do get cholestasis. Mostly they get elevated transaminases. So the elevated transaminases less than 3 times the upper limit, we usually wait and watch. So most of the times we watch them, and there's a way of checking for it. Where do we go? I think we're going backwards. Sir, the PowerPoint is going backwards.
I will move the slides. Let me share the screen.
Okay, so we're in the adverse events. This is slide number 43.
Yeah, I'll keep talking about it. I'll just get back to the PPT.
Slide 43. So the slide so adverse events. So it does. So funnily enough, like most drugs, it says drowsiness. It also at the same site says insomnia and sleep disturbances. Most of the children, I have not seen drowsiness. I must, but that's only for 40 odd children. we usually see alertness. The drowsiness, if at all it is there, we think it is probably either because the epilepsy is worsening or because of the effect of other drugs. There is anorexia, reduced appetite, diarrhea may be seen, and there may be elevated transaminases, fatigue, rash, malaise, and sleep disturbances. So liver impairment is the one thing that we take very seriously. So the liver impairment is often dose related, and there's elevation of AST-ALT, and most commonly it's seen in the first 2 months. Like we all monitor LFTs, so it's usually in the for valproate and other things. It's usually in the first few months of giving the CBD, and it is dose dependent often. And usually there is other things such as concomitant use of valproate can make it worse. Drowsiness, concomitant use of benzodiazepines makes it worse. So we are on the next slide, sir. Slide. That's the previous slide, which people missed. The previous one. The previous one, sir. So that's the one. Liver enzymes, AST-ALT, drowsiness, anorexia, diarrhea. So coming to the next one. So again, suicidal ideation, I've not noticed because most of my children are really not able to communicate. They're very sick. They usually have a GMFCS score of only 4. They don't have head control. They have bad epilepsy. And I've used it in smaller children, mainly because of the cost. I've used it in children weighing less than 10 or 15 kgs because it's dramatically very, very expensive if they're heavier, almost 20 kgs. So usually many people think that it is related to the underlying disease and not just to CBD. I guess all of us have had experience with suicidal ideation with levetiracetam. I'll never forget having a 6-year-old child from a very nice family having only a single drug, single agent for anti-epileptic control, who came in after being on well-controlled on levetiracetam and telling the mother and telling us that he kept imagining that he wanted to use a school tie to hang himself and commit suicide. The moment we stopped levetiracetam, it went away. But we've all had dramatic experiences like that. But it's very unusual. Most of the times, we probably overanalyze things. To the next slide. So the diarrhea can sometimes happen, but this is dose dependent, and the dose, if you adjust the frequency, then you can reduce it, or you can even make it 3 times a day instead of twice a day, and you can overcome the diarrhea. So the AST-ALT, this is important. So you do need to monitor the LFTs. My boss, Professor Helen Cross, told me that do it once in 2 weeks the first month, 2 weekly, and thereafter once a month. So I tend to stick to that. And we don't really respond to the initial slight elevated AST-ALT, but if it's persistently more than 3, I've only had one patient whom I've had to stop the CBD. But then again, I'm not sure if it is because of the CBD or because it was Endoca and not the pure Epidiol X, if there were any other excipients which caused the liver damage. But they all get back better. Once you stop, they're reversible. So consider discontinuing if any of these things happen. So drug interaction, as we mentioned, it is metabolized by the CYP3A4 and the CYP2C19. So benzodiazepines may increase the circulating levels of CBD when co-administered. So this is more so in the European, in Europeans, 2%, 13% in Asians, and 57% in Oceanians who have poor enzyme activity. So we also need to be aware that there's enzyme inhibitors can also make it worse. So coming to the legislation, this is some of the last slides. So throughout the world, acceptability of cannabis, even within our own country, depending on which cultural part of India we come from, everything is different. This is a map showing cannabis use in the world where it is acknowledged. As you see, India is not even on the map, which I'm sure is not true. We have a lot of use for it, but this is with regards to legal use. So if you go to the next slide, please, sir. So this is 2018. This is a heartbreaking slide. This was used for advocating for FDA approval of CBD. There were many families with drug refractory epilepsy who would move from a CBD illegal state to a CBD legal state just so that their child could get the medicine. Because in the US, where this legislation happened, there was difference between federal law and US state laws because they all followed the 1930 prohibition laws, but in 2018 there was some amount of lowering of these strictness of these laws. So now coming to the availability, this is a price tag. I don't have any patient on Epidiol X. I've written prescriptions for it. We've tried fundraising for it. We found it is cheaper. If they are more than 10 kgs, it seems unimaginable to give this kind of price tag. 32,500 rupees per year, roughly. So most of my patients who are 10 kgs or 15 kgs need 1 ml of this 100 milligrams per ml bottle in 2 divided doses, 0.5 ml per day. But that means that it lasts only 3 months. There are pharmaceutical companies or import companies such as Ikra Pharma that import them, but they charge 200 euros just to import 3 bottles. So I have no idea where we are stuck, but this seems to be really difficult. As a body, we, the Association of Child Neurology India, are trying to legalize this, just as we were trying to legalize vigabatrin, and we've succeeded. 25th of August, we managed to legalize vigabatrin, and now vigabatrin is launched in India by MFN Pharma. It was launched officially on 25th, and now it's available. Previously, people had to buy it even at, it was available as 1,500 rupees in the grey market. Now it's available for, and there was a time when people were desperate to even buy it for 10,000 rupees. Now it's available for 600 rupees for 10. So one day we are dreaming of a world where hopefully this is available to the people who really need it. That's it, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ann. It was a beautiful presentation and very exhaustive from your personal experience, but unfortunately only a handful of audience were there. I think most people missed it, but your presentation will be on YouTube. Hopefully people will make use of this presentation.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And this cost is $32,000, not rupees.
$32,500, yeah. Yeah. But for the Endoca patients, my patients who are on it, for them it costs roughly 10,000 to the 15,000 rupees if they are 10 kg child per month. It's
Grey
still
market.
very expensive.
It's from
so
grey
I'm
market.
not prescribed. So I don't prescribe it to anybody about 15 kgs.
No, the Endoca is available in grey market.
It's available. Yeah, it's available. It's available in Europe and other places. So what we do is, again, we get into legal trouble. So I prescribe the CBD. I don't prescribe Endoca. I prescribe it as pure CBD. And I tell the families, legally, we are not allowed to show you how to do it. You ask another family. I can unofficially tell you how to use it. So they have to learn how to dilute it, how to get it. And the children respond. So majority of these patients who are on it, previously where they were going on getting admitted to PICU, they're not getting admitted to PICU. They're, instead of 2 weekly reviews, they're coming for 3 and 4 monthly reviews. There's no doubt it works. But we have to legally protect ourselves. When these patients come and get admitted to PICU, we make it a point that even our nurses do not administer it. Because we have no protection in giving it, no? So I don't know what the answer is. I have more questions than answers.
Dr. Srinivas is there, sir is there. I think he can give his opinion. Sir, are you there?
It is an excellent talk about the cannabinoid, and as we said, we hope we will be able to get to the market to help those small children who are having multiple seizures which are not responding. But our only concern is it should not be misused. As a new drug, they start like Libertarian. In spite
sir,
of
HVS, sir, is that you? HVS, sir?
Yeah,
yes,
HVS only, yeah.
Okay. Sir, the problem is not that, sir. We are desperate for this medicine. On the other side, if I walk into a like, your Nature's Basket or any of your posh upscale market, you have weird people coming and telling you, I'll sell it to you.
Yeah. My God.
Yeah, it's very scary.
Yeah, absolutely. The last one you said something which is available for 600 rupees. What is that drug?
That is vigabatrin, sir. Now it's available in the market.
Vigabatrin.
It's no longer a grey market product. But it took us 3 years. We took 120 pediatric neurologists' signature, took it to the central government, and we managed to get it passed. The law was passed.
Very good.
25th of August, it has been released in the market.
Very good. Excellent.
We are trying to do it as a body. The AOCN, I'm part of the advocacy group. So we are trying to get CBD into the country.
Very nice. I know with your leadership and your persistence, it will be successful. You have done so much for SMEI also. And we are really proud of you.
Thank you, sir. I have good teachers. Sir, Dr. Sharma was my teacher. Sir was my teacher.
Yeah, very good.
Great work, Dr. Ann. I think I wonder at the energy with which you are working. Really, SMEs, I know how much trouble you have taken in managing these patients. Great work. Congratulations.
Thank you,
and
sir.
You have one more talk, I think, now. 8 o'clock, we have one more talk.
SMA, today is SMA month. This is the ending last day. So we are having a national meet now.
So I won't hold you back. Thank you once again. Excellent talk.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Where is the talk? SMA and
It's it's an electronic media. The Zoom thing.
It's your own group or it's available
It's
for
for
others?
everybody. It's available for everybody. But this
Can you
was
send
mainly.
me the link?
I can send you the links.
Yeah,
I can
please.
send you the link. So this is mainly to educate. There's so much of chaos and confusion. Everybody's choosing all the wrong drugs. So we actually, this was meant mostly to say, don't run behind 16 crores or run behind Spinraza. Choose the right drug for the right thing. So this was organized. This is we've done 6 talks this month. Everything was pharma funded. So we wanted a non-pharma funded talk. So this is a non-pharma funded talk.
Okay, good. Please send the link.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.